Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. I'm your host, Ezekiel Iferia, and today's guest is Laura Bratton. At age 9, she was diagnosed with an eye disease. Over the next 10 years, during the chaos of being a teenager, she watched her world slowly fade into darkness. Most people would see blindness as a tragedy. Laura sees it as a teacher. She had to learn that you cannot fix everything with effort. Sometimes you have to grieve the life you thought you would have before you can embrace the one you actually do. She is the author of Harnessing Courage and is here to talk about the difference between sight and vision, why grit requires grief, and how she found gratitude in the dark. So, Laura, I am very excited and honored to welcome you to the show. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's great to have you here. So, let's get started, Laura. Let's start by talking about your book, Harnessing Courage. So, could you give us an overview of what the book is about and just tell us your motivation behind writing this book? What prompted you to start writing the book and who the ideal readers are?
So I'm going to start with the motivation first and then talk about why I wrote the book, because then that'll make it very clear. So my
All right.
whole motivation and passion behind writing the book was for the purpose of being the support that I had received. So through that experience of becoming blind as a teenager and having to adjust and figure out how to move forward, I received incredible support. And not support like, "Oh, you're amazing, you're inspirational." Not through their words, but just their deep actions of you still matter, you still have meaning and purpose in the world. So because of that support that I received, I wanted to write a book that was that support to other people. So the passion was all because of my life experience. I wanted to be that support to other people. So what the book is specifically, what it's about, I tell my life story, but I tell it through the perspective of grit and of gratitude. And it's not just my story through that perspective of grit and gratitude. It's also constantly turning around to the readers and saying, this is how I had to learn to be comfortable in my new normal. Now, what in your life situation are you having to become comfortable in your new normal? So at every point in the book, I'm constantly turning it back to the reader to say, how can you apply grit and how can you apply gratitude as you navigate through change? So, as the passion was being that support, and the purpose of the book was writing it through the perspective of grit and gratitude, the reader is for anyone going through change. And so I've had people read the book that have, received a cancer diagnosis or a terminal illness or some kind of ongoing disease, or I've had countless job changes, relational changes. I've had all types of situations. So it's not specific to one type of change or situation. The purpose is for anyone to pick up that book who is going through a major life change and be able to apply the resources of grit and apply the resources of gratitude so that they can navigate forward.
All right. All right. So your book is called Harnessing Courage, and you also talk about grit and gratitude. So I'd like to know your own, I'd like to hear your own thoughts and opinion on this. Is courage the absence of fear, or is it just moving forward while your knees are shaking? What's your thoughts on this?
100% moving forward while your knees are shaking. It's literally acknowledging that fear, validating that fear and still choosing to move forward with shaky knees. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's not the absence of, when my knees are not shaking and I'm totally confident, then I'll move forward. It's acknowledging the real fear and still choosing to keep going.
Okay. So, Laura, you lost your sight slowly over a decade, starting at age 9. Now, that's a long time to say goodbye to the visible world. So do you think that slow fade was harder than if it had happened all at once? Did it force you to, grieve in slow motion?
So it absolutely forced me to grieve, not just at slow motion, but at constant stages. So when I started to lose my sight, because it was so rare and is so rare, not just was, still is, there wasn't a timeline. So the doctors didn't say, you'll be totally blind by the time you graduate from high school, or you'll lose your sight over a few year period. There was no timeline. So the grieving was fast and slow all at one time. What made the grieving so incredibly difficult was I knew what I was actively losing. I
Mm.
knew how easy life was with full sight, even with limited sight. I knew how simple that made life. So that's what I was constantly grieving. Because there was not a timeline, there wasn't this countdown in my head of, oh, I have 2 more months to grieve and my vision's all gone. There wasn't a countdown. What I was constantly grieving was how easy life used to be.
So we often love stories of triumph, but many times we skip or ignore the sadness. So you talk openly about the grieving process. So is it impossible to find true grit if you haven't let yourself cry over what you lost? I'd like to hear your own opinion around this.
In my life experience, yes. And the reason I say that is because I couldn't have this, as you perfectly described it, this triumph moving forward process if I never let myself grieve. And the reason I say that from my own experience, when I tried to go from, okay, I'm losing my sight to, okay, let's be positive, let's move forward, let's be happy, let's be positive, and skipped over letting myself feel the sadness, I was more depressed. I had more panic attacks. And that's very literal. Like, you can ask family, you can ask therapists that I went and saw. When I denied my feelings, when I denied the sadness, I could not get to the moving forward. I could get to the moving forward on a surface level, but not on a deep, true, I believe in myself moving forward level. So 100% in my life experience, to validate the sadness, to allow myself to cry was the only way I was able to truly move forward.
All right, all right. Thank you for sharing that with us, Laura. So being a teenager is hard enough when you can see. Navigating high school while going blind sounds incredibly isolating. So, Laura, did you feel like you were failing at being normal while your friends were worrying about other things like prom or driver's licenses?
100%. And you said it perfectly. It was incredibly isolating when I was literally trying to focus on just surviving the day. And my friends were focused on what you said, their permit, their driver's license, making sure their clothes were cute, their earrings were just like what they needed to be to keep up with the popular group. Yes, I grieved those normal worries. I vividly remember thinking, if that was my only worry, That would be great. Teenage life would be good. Yes, it was incredibly, incredibly isolating because my worries were literally trying to get through the day rather than, am I going to pass my driver's license test?
We are often told that if we try hard enough, we can fix anything. On the other hand, you faced something you really couldn't fix. So, was the hardest part realizing that no amount of effort would bring back your sight?
Absolutely. Because, like you said, I used to define grit as if I just try hard enough, it'll all work out.
Yeah,
What, I can't try hard enough and see better. Right? Like, that's just not going to happen as much as I want it to.
yeah.
I couldn't navigate through this with brute force. What I could control was my mindset and my response to blindness. So that's when I had to learn trying hard enough is not going to get me anywhere. What is going to get me somewhere is validating and acknowledging the depth of my pain and the depth of my grief. And as I acknowledge that and validate that, then I have the strength to keep going. So it's not pure, I can't even talk. It's not pure force that trying harder is going to get me there. Is focusing on self-love, self-compassion that's going to get me there.
All right. All right, Laura. So, you have lost your sight, but you still seem to have, clearer vision than most people. So, what is the one thing that sighted people are actually blind to because they rely too much on their eyes?
The gift of self-compassion. And I say that because it was so hard for me to learn. It's so difficult for other people I work with to learn because it seems easier for us to be compassionate towards others, but really, really hard to offer that self compassion to ourselves. And why I say the gift of self compassion is because when we give that gift to ourselves, then we have the strength and the confidence to navigate through any change. So when we have that level of self compassion, we can navigate through that change without being shut down, without being overwhelmed. Yes, we'll have moments of being shut down and being overwhelmed, but that's not the end of the story. So that self compassion is absolutely the gift I wish we all could live into.
Indeed, indeed, Laura. So, for the listener in our audience who is losing something right now, maybe a job or relationship or their health, so what's the first step they need to take to stop fighting the change and start navigating it?
Before I give the first step, I want to highlight what you said because actually, what you just said is the first step.
Mm.
Stop fighting the change. If I could have heard you say that when I was a teenager, that would be absolutely a game changer. You just perfectly named it. The first step when experiencing any kind of major loss, stop fighting the change. And the way that we can stop fighting the change is to remember that we are enough. Even in the change, even in the change as big as it is, as significant as it is, as much as it impacts our life, as much as we don't want the change, accept that we're not fighting against the change. We are enough even in the change. And when we accept we're enough, then we stop fighting it. At least that was my experience in my healing journey.
All right, Laura, thank you very much for sharing that with our audience. I sincerely hope it helps someone listening out there. So, for you, after losing your sight and gaining a voice that empowers thousands, I'd like to know, what does being successful truly mean to you now?
Being successful means living every day with courage. So if I can wake up in the morning and choose courage and constantly choose courage throughout the day and repeat that, that's success to me. So rather than success being material things or achieving certain goals or expectations, just for me as an individual, and again, it circles back to the self compassion. Living every day successfully looks like choosing courage because life
Mm,
for all of us is really, really hard. And it's even harder when we experience the changes we were not expecting, whether the change is short term, long term, however long it lasts. So, success to me, again, in my life, and when I've seen that lived out in others' life, choosing that courage is deep, deep, deep success.
all right. Choosing courage. Laura, that's an amazing measure you've attributed to being successful, dear. And thank you very much for sharing it with us today. Lastly, Laura, for our listeners who want to go read Harnessing Courage or book you for coaching or maybe just connect with you, so where is the best place for them to go?
So the best place is my website. LauraBratton.com is where you can buy the book. Buying it on there, I can sign it, personalize it, and definitely connect. Learn more about my speaking, coaching, just connect to hear about how you're using gratitude. All the resources are on the website.
All right, all right. I'll be sure to have the website linked in the show notes of this podcast. Laura, it's been a really, really great time having a conversation with you. And I am indeed very excited and honored to have you on the show today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate the honor.